What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. And joining me to do just that is Chris Allen. Chris, what's going on, buddy?
Dude, another week of just crazy action, whether it's injuries, whether it's players that we're not typically rostering, finding their way into the end zone. It's just another Sunday where I'm reminded, or we get reminded, that we know nothing about this game. We can sit here and prognosticate and say that, oh yeah, based off of these stats and what I'm seeing in the spreadsheet, this is what, and then the players go out there and do the exact opposite afterwards. So no, happy to sit down and try and review and recap as much as possible because, man, it's been just another wild Sunday, bro.
Chris, that was a great voice. I loved that. That was a very good like fantasy analyst voice. That was a great.
That's how I sound as I'm writing. This is how I sound.
100%. And yes, it was a very chaotic Sunday in the NFL. We have some unfortunate injuries. We have some surprising performances to get into. So let's waste no more time. Let's just jump right into this whole thing. Here's how these Sunday live recap shows break down. The first segment, we give you the games that we care most about, plus our boom and bust players of the week. The second segment, those are the games that we sort of care about. Third segment, those are the games that could have been an email where we go a little more rapid fire, pick up the pace on some games that were very lopsided or just things we might need to re-review over the course of the next few days. So let's start it here with our week 4 boom or bust players of the week. And I think for our boom player, we've got to go with Raiders running back Ashton Jeanty, over 30 fantasy points in this game, Chris, right when we're all starting to panic about the offensive line and like it just might never happen for Jeanty. He has an absolutely dominant outing against the Chicago Bears in a loss.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the fact that we wound up seeing him get into the end zone, but it was just from a rushing standpoint. He got that 64-yard house call, and also seeing him used as a receiver as well. I mean, 2 touchdowns as a pass catcher from Geno Smith. So it's that combined usage that we really wanted to see coming out of for Ashton Jeanty coming out of college. So again, they're not always going to face the Bears rush defense and all of that, but still seeing him actually perform as both the rusher and receiver that we all expected for him coming out of college was a good thing to see.
Yeah, I think most of my concerns about Jeanty paying off like a first-round pick value are probably still present in his range of outcomes, but just knowing that he has this ceiling game available to him, encouraging. I thought the offensive line played the best game we've seen so far this year. That's a low bar, and we're going to talk about a potential injury that might change that when we get to the Raiders section later on in the show, but still very good to see Jeanty come out here and put 3 touchdowns on the board. You mentioned the 2 as a receiver. Very encouraging performance for the rookie running back who went in the first round this year. Not so encouraging, our bust player of the week, and this one goes right to my heart, not just because I love Chargers wide receiver Ladd McConkey, but because I said confidently this was going to be the Ladd McConkey week. Chase that ceiling week. Chase him this week. Well, I chased that thing right off a cliff, Chris Allen, because he had just one catch as the Chargers dropped back a ton in negative game script. I mean, mega tilting performance for anybody invested in Ladd McConkey at any level. How concerned are you about this one catch stat line, Chris Allen?
I'm really concerned at this point, and another offensive line injury for the Chargers. But I will say this, and I'll toss it to you real quick because I'll toss out an idea that I had while watching this game. And you posted a similar point or similar observation just regarding quarterbacks and their wide receivers and how, especially when things start to break down, and how not necessarily the scramble drill, but just when things aren't in the script or in line with how the play is designed, how things can change for a wide receiver. And think about this. Ladd McConkey last year, when he was playing with Justin Herbert, how many years or how many seasons we've talked about Herbert being something of a robot at the quarterback position. He runs the play as designed. But now for this season, especially now seeing Herbert start to rip it a bit more from a pass rate over expectation standpoint, having to play off script with Justin Herbert is probably not something that McConkey is, I would say, accustomed to as compared to what he was at in his first year. And so when you see Herbert start to get pressured and having to throw downfield more often, this is where Quentin Johnson, a receiver like him, would really start to come into play, because Quentin Johnson went over 60 yards and he also had a touchdown on the throws from Justin Herbert where he took more than 2.5 seconds to throw. So I'm wondering if there's something of that going on in the offense where McConkey saw Herbert play in one style his rookie season and now essentially shifting almost 180 shift now in year two. And maybe that's where some of that, I would say, disappointment lies. But I don't know. It's just something that I'm seeing right now, or just that I'm thinking about after these 4 games, because how Johnston plays and the connection that Keenan Allen already has with Herbert, it kind of leaves McConkey in this no man's land in terms of how much he's going to be used. So I'm thinking there are going to be better days ahead for McConkey, but it's just how he's played and how he's learned about the wide receiver position through Herbert. It just differs with the complete play style shift for Herbert right now in 2025.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And the thing I'm tracking too is with the offensive line, as you mentioned, Joe Alt leaves this game with a high ankle sprain. They're already out. Rashawn Slater, Mekhi Becton also not playing in this game. So they had 3 starters not playing on the offensive line, like guys that went to training camp intending to be starters, not playing in this game. And it was against a good defensive line. You felt that. And one thing I keep saying about Ladd McConkey is he's not, a guy that's running routes in the short area. He runs a lot of vertical routes. And if Herbert is going to be under pressure, a lot of those kind of quick hitting layup passes are going to go to Keenan Allen, or they're going to go to Quentin Johnston, because that's how they've kind of QJ is definitely, absolutely improved this year. And, that's something we've consistently talked about on the show, that he's improved. He's gotten better. That touchdown catch that he had today with the stutter and go route, and he also tracks the ball into a tight window. That's a play he just did not make in his first 2 years in the NFL. That's the type of play he's making now that he didn't make before. But the way that this coaching staff originally got QJ kind of going last year amid what I called a micro leap was they got him running on these, quick runway routes underneath of zone coverage. And again, that's not something you want to necessarily do with Ladd McConkey. So I just think, is he going to go into the coping corner tomorrow in the people's panic meter? Probably not. I don't think we're quite there, because like you said, I think there will be bigger days and bigger games because he's just a good player in a pass-heavy offense. Like, I don't think all of a sudden Ladd McConkey forgot how to play football. Sometimes these things just happen, but it's past time for like a dramatic reconfiguration of what you thought his performance and output would be this year, because the picture's just dramatically changed from what it was last year, because QJ has emerged and Keenan Allen is back, and that just kind of is what it is. Not to mention also, Chris, we talk about the offensive line and the injuries there. Amari Hampton is really involved as like kind of a layup target for this team as well, just to check the ball down and keep Herbert out of those pressure situations. So that's just another guy who's going to be commanding volume in the receiving game. So not great if you took Ladd McConkey in the late second round this year. It is just not. I don't think that's going to work out. I think he will have bigger games, better days than one catch for 11 damn yards, but it's not going to happen for him as like a second round value player. At least that's what the evidence has shown us so far. All right. With that, let's get into the games that we care about most, starting with something that I thought would be a bit better of a contest. That is Chiefs 37, Ravens 20. Let's start out on the Chiefs side of this thing here. Patrick Mahomes has 4 touchdowns, Chris. That was his first 4-touchdown game since October of 2023. So we wanted to see the high-flying Chiefs. We got them in this game.
Yeah, and seeing Xavier Worthy back out on the field, and we talked about the potential fantasy value for Xavier Worthy being back to that offense. And of course, he has the 83 yards. Has a couple of deep shots from Patrick Mahomes. But it's not just the fact that Worthy was making that production. It's how much he opened up for some of the other wide receivers out there on the field. Of course, me trying to continually go back to Hollywood Brown as an option. He winds up getting in the end zone this week. Juju Smith-Schuster of course. Juju Smith-Schuster gets into the end zone. So having a player like Worthy that can stretch the defense, and of course they were challenging a lot of the Ravens defenders downfield, whether it was Chido Awuzie, whether it didn't matter who it was really at this point, but that's where Worthy provides a lot of that value, being able to stretch the field. So great to see like that from a passing game standpoint. And of course, Patrick Mahomes having like those 4 touchdowns, but also, the rushing game also looked a bit more productive this week as well. Isaiah Pacheco finding his way like into the end zone as a receiver. And of course, Kareem Hunt, like battering ram his way into for a few first downs here and there. So I think that's where it's just, this offense now looks back with Worthy out there on the field. And with Rice slated to come back here in a couple of weeks as well. A lot of the concerns that we had about the Chiefs offense might have been just because they didn't have some of their better players out there on the field.
Yeah, I thought Worthy looked really good in this game. Multiple standout moments. There was the one go route that he had along the right sideline, and they immediately went back to him on the next play for essentially the same
That's right. Yeah.
sort of shot play. Mahomes just overthrew it, or maybe he was a little bit tangled up, was Worthy in the coverage or whatever. But still, I mean, pretty much a full-time player. If the numbers I'm looking at right now are accurate, he ran a route on 70% of the dropbacks, which was just behind Juju Smith-Schuster for the team lead. He was the leading rusher on the day with Xavier Worthy with 2 carries for 38 yards, a 35-yard run, obviously boosted that up. But yeah, he was pretty much seemingly no restrictions in this one, so he's going to continue to be a big force. Really happy to see him back in the offense, and everybody else just like slots down a peg. Hollywood Brown could be a guy that's playable. Tyquan Thornton obviously has the touchdown, but his route participation drops back. That's kind of what you want from him, and Juju was useful as that sort of chain mover as well. So again, I think it just settles everybody else into their correct role, and we still don't even have Rashee Rice back yet. It's going to be super fascinating. I feel like I've been waiting for almost a year now to see what the fully fledged Xavier Worthy and fully fledged Rashee Rice would be like on the field together. And we're not too far away from finally getting those answers, Chris.
No, and the thing that really I keyed in on for Xavier Worthy was the fact that they were using him on end arounds, no restrictions. I know that was part of the pregame report for Xavier Worthy, but it's one thing to hear the reports and another thing to actually see it on the field in terms of how little, I guess, concern the Chiefs coaching staff had for Worthy coming back after missing those couple of games with the shoulder injury. So I kind of expected, at least me being more conservative in this regard about injuries, especially for shoulder injuries, is that they might want to get him a couple of passes here and there, but then afterwards try and maybe hide him as much as possible, given how much they've tried to use Hollywood Brown and, of course, Juju Smith-Schuster in the past. Nope. Having him used as a rusher, trying to send him downfield, across the middle of the field, didn't really matter from that standpoint. So if this is what we're should expect for Xavier Worthy moving forward, like you were saying, once they have Rashee Rice back, I mean, this might be a fully operational battle station for the Chiefs. So I'm really looking forward to see what this can look like once they get all their pieces back.
Speaking of a team that does not have all of their pieces, let's transition this over to the Baltimore Ravens. And man, a bad season got worse today here in week 4. And this is a season that right now just looks like it's teetering on the edge. We might look back and see, week 4, this is when it kind of fell apart for the Baltimore Ravens. And it's mostly because of injury. So in this game, the Ravens lose multiple key players due to injury. Lamar Jackson got a hamstring injury. Cooper Rush made an appearance. I was not ready to see Cooper Rush in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. Ronnie Stanley left the game early with an ankle injury. Roquan Smith, hamstring. Marlon Humphrey, calf. Nate Wiggins, arm. I mean, these are some of their best players, and not to mention Nnamdi Madubuike already on IR with a neck injury. Yep. Kyle Van Noy did not play in this game. Travis Jones has a knee injury as well. This is a just super banged up team that even before the injuries just kind of like a tidal wave hit this team, Chris, it still didn't feel quite right to me. Lamar just seemed a little bit uncomfortable throughout the day. That was kind of true at the end of last week's game to me as well. He just wasn't playing all that confident and comfortable in the pocket. I definitely do not get good vibes from this Ravens team right now. How do you feel about this whole thing?
No, I completely feel the same because I thought it was going to be just a 1-week blip. They were going up against the Lions last week. Dan Campbell had a solid defensive game plan for keeping Lamar in the pocket and also trying to muddy up the waters on the back end enough that it would cause Lamar to essentially hold the ball a bit longer before trying to pull the trigger. It looked the same this week. I mean, Spags knew what he was doing in terms of not just the blitz and sim pressures, but also the fact that they were able to have a spy on the back end of that to keep Lamar essentially from doing some of the same damage he's been able to do as a scrambler throughout most of his time as a starter. So, I mean, he took another multiple sacks in this game as well. And there were a couple of times where I thought he had Zay Flowers down the across the middle of the field and also down the right sideline on a couple of plays where they could pick up a couple of chunk gains. And so that level of hesitation kind of led to some of the, I would say, inaccuracies. I mean, he wound up throwing that interception his first of the season where, I thought he had Mark Andrews underneath on that pass instead of trying to throw the ball downfield. And so it's that shift where now they're relying more on Justice Hill, instead of having Derrick Henry out there on the field for like on the early downs, we're not really seeing a lot of those passes across the middle of the field to Zay Flowers, where they're trying to attempt to create more downfield with some of their other wide receivers. So it's just not the same Ravens offense that we saw in week one that we assumed was going to be at least headed to the AFC Championship. And with all these injuries piling up, especially now with Lamar also potentially sidelined for next week, I do have some concerns about anybody that we drafted from Baltimore.
Yeah, the Derrick Henry stuff is especially disappointing because if they're going to be this team that can't, like, if their defense is going to fall apart in this fashion that we've seen over the last few weeks, he's a game script sensitive back. Even if he's one of the best running backs we've ever seen play, you mentioned Justice Hill. You're going to see a lot more of him because that's how they view him. And that's how basically every coaching staff that Derrick Henry's ever been a part of views him as that, it sounds weird to call him a timeshare back or an early down banger, but he's probably like the best early down banger in NFL history and just has never really been used on passing downs. And at this point in his career, that's obviously not going to change. So he becomes a little bit of a tenuous player in fantasy football right now. So we'll just have to track this Ravens team throughout the course of this week and see who's actually going to be on the field for this team in week 5, because, man, it is a real messy one coming out of this game. Let's go to our next game that we really care about here. Rams 27, Colts 20.
Yeah.
The Rams do it again, man. 3 touchdowns from Matthew Stafford. Puka Nacua scores his first receiving touchdown of the season, which seems like an insane thing to say because he's been so hyper productive. 15 targets, 13 catches. He's just on absolute fire right now. He has 500 yards. I mean, is he on pace for 2,000 at this point? He's got to be pretty close. Just an insane season from Puka Nacua that just continues to get better and better seemingly each week.
And another trip for him to the medical tent. I can't.
Of course,
each week we can't keep doing this, man. Like, yes, he's going to get all the volume, but you always wind up looking down at your phone, or you see the blip run across of Puka having to go to the injury tent. And I don't want to have to do this every week, man, because we came into this game where it was Davante Adams was the one with the injury concerns, right, with the hamstring injury, and he still winds up finding the box as well. But just an absolute stellar performance from Matthew Stafford. I mean, the dude can still sling it at this age. And of course, like we were talking earlier this morning, I mean, all the back injury concerns for Matthew Stafford, and to see him go up against what we have come to see as being a well-coached Colts defense by former Bengals DC Lou Anarumo, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nothing more, like no negatives really to take away from Matthew Stafford in this particular game. So if you have Puka Nacua on your roster, you're excited. And of course, if you wind up taking the plunge with Davante Adams as well, you have to be happy with potential limitations for Adams given the hamstring injury. But still, those are his 2 guys right now. It is Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, and really nobody else. Because even though Tutu Adams called game here, or Tutu Atwell rather called game with the touchdown, we're not. I would not advise anybody to rush to the waiver wire to pick up him. So it's really just those 2 guys for right now.
Yeah, that was his lone catch of the day, the 88-yard touchdown to Atwell. Yeah, for any limitations that we thought we'd see out of Davante Adams, he ran a route on 96% of the dropbacks. So he was out there, ended up getting you over 13 fantasy points. He did his thing. He caught the touchdown. That was obviously fantastic. This is kind of the exact way you'd expect these 2 guys to be used together. I just, as long as Puka's on the field, I don't see this changing. He's basically the guy that is going to get all the design stuff. He just is consistently getting the screens. Even the touchdown today, just a quick slant route against man coverage. He just scoots on into the end zone. And hey, we're on our way to another monster fantasy performance. So yeah, I mean, I get it. It's frustrating. It's frustrating when we see the injuries, but he just gets back on the field and catches like 6 more passes. So,
I know. It just has zero concern for his body. It's just, I'm doing this and I'm going to wind up getting over 10 targets, and that's what we're doing.
We'll see as long as Matthew Stafford's back holds up. And right now it's looking fine. It's looking like all that August worrying was for nothing. Who knows if that's going to last forever, but I'm riding this gravy train until the wheels fall off. I'll tell you that much. In the backfield, only update there is that not much has changed. Kyren Williams, 13 carries, 77 yards. Blake Corum, 9 carries, 21 yards. So a little bit more of a split. He also had 2 catches for -5 yards, did Blake Corum. Kyren Williams, 3 for 17. So they did say they want to mix Blake Corum in a little bit more, but Kyren Williams is still the lead back here. So just if you're downgrading Kyren Williams at all, it's very, very, very small. Let's talk about the Colts here. I think this was overall pretty good offensive performance from the Colts, but the problem is they had 2 interceptions from Daniel Jones, which we hadn't seen for the vast majority of the season. Both of them, I think he kind of had a little bit too much dip on his chip, tried to force a couple passes. And then, man, A.D. Mitchell, brother.
Oh, bro. What are we doing? After Jonathan Taylor did the same thing last year, and we're going to do this again?
Oh, my God, yeah. So if you didn't watch the game, A.D. Mitchell obviously starts at the X receiver position. In place of Alec Pierce, who's in concussion protocol. He actually leads the team with 96 receiving yards on just 3 catches because of this long one where he just sticks the ball out too early, fumbles it into the end zone. Obviously, what should have been a long touchdown becomes a touchback. Rams get the ball. And then later, Jonathan Taylor rips off a long touchdown run, and A.D. Mitchell gets called for a needless hold on, again, what would have been a critical late touchdown run for this team. So, man, it was just the play that A.D. Mitchell made to catch the pass was sick. How it ended made you a little sick to your stomach. So that is the A.D. Mitchell experience. And I mean, that's kind of the biggest story coming out of here from the Colts pass catchers.
If I was A.D. Mitchell, I would just go ahead and not even go to the locker room. I'd just hop on, just book my own plane ride home, and then that's it. I'll see y'all at home. Great game, everybody. This one's on me, and I'll just catch my own flight home. I'll just find my own way back, because that was tough. Because because they had it, it's a touchdown difference in terms of how much they lost, 27-20. He walks into that. They at least force OT at that point. So at least they bring it back within a 1-score game, or not 1-score game, but I mean, they wind up tying it at that point. So that's my, I don't know, no good, very bad day for A.D. Mitchell. And also, I would say my general concern for Michael Pittman, I mean, 10 targets on the day, so the opportunity is going to be there for Daniel Jones, number one, but also a number of inaccurate throws, I would say, for Daniel Jones on a couple of them. And you'd hope to see him be a bit more involved in future games, like from a reception standpoint. And also, let's talk a bit about Tyler Warren, man, because it wasn't just the fact that he wound up mixing in for 6 targets, a rushing touchdown for Tyler Warren in this game as well. I mean, taking a score away from Jonathan Taylor. I was really surprised to see, he got 2 cracks at it, if I'm remembering correctly, in order to find his way into the end zone. So Shane Steichen trying to mix things up. I think that was good to see, to get their rookie tight end involved. So if this is the type of usage we can expect from him after something of a lull in week 3, seeing him pick back up from a receiving standpoint was pretty good for folks that got Warren on the roster.
Let's go to the next game here, back into the early window. Eagles 31, Buccaneers 25. I mean, what can you say about the damn Eagles, bro? This is just another good team win with almost no one outside of Hurts managers and some folks who started Dallas Goedert, which was 20% of Yahoo leagues, so not even close to the majority. Those are the only people who come out of this happy from a fantasy football perspective. Specifically, who might not be happy is A.J. Brown, who's in the middle of, not in the middle of, but at some point during the late window was in the middle of a tweet spree, maybe getting his feelings out there. If you're watching with us on YouTube, you can see one of the quotes that he put up, a screenshot of, "If you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene. Shrug your shoulders and be on your way," which is the most wide receiver cryptic tweet I've ever seen to post this quote. So I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's about, but that's what he's putting out there after this game. And it is a win, but it's another frustrating Eagles offensive performance, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and folks that will try and analyze this game and look at some of the metrics and stuff that go behind the scenes, I would look at this, and I took a look at the numbers. 71% of the team's air yards went to A.J. Brown. That did not look like – those were more prayer yards than air yards, if anything else. And to your point, reading that tweet, all I can think about was Denny Carter's tweet from I don't know how many years ago about the wide receivers. It speaks kindly but holds a knife. But those are the types of things. Isn't
AJ Brown the one who actually put that? I think he actually
said
might
that quote. Be.
He did. I'm pretty sure he actually tweeted that at one point. The enemy speaks kindly and holds a knife. I'm pretty sure he actually did.
So this kind of works out that he's still doing it here in 2025, because those are the things that we look at, or we try and at least project volume based off of how often these guys are used. And so, around a 30% target share and 70% of the team's air yards. Of course, you want to start that guy, but 2 catches for 7 yards, that's not going to get it done for you. Really the only thing that I mean, I guess I'm not concerned because these are the ups and downs that the Eagles passing game is going to have week in and week out. We kind of raised those yellow flags in week one when they played against the Cowboys secondary. But now I think the bigger concern for me right now is what's going on with Saquon Barkley, man. Yes, he got into the end zone. Question. But not seeing really the level of explosive runs for the Eagles running game after how many 100-yard games do we see out of Barkley week in and week out in 2024? I'd say that's my larger concern coming out of it because the Eagles passing game, yes, that's going to be something of an up and down battle, just how they typically like to run their offense. It's been more run heavy over the past 3 to 4 years, but Barkley not really getting it down on the ground outside of the touchdown. That's my biggest concern coming out of this game.
It's a great call out. And early on in this game, I felt Kevin Patullo is the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles that I've been a little bit hard on this year. But I thought coming in the first few drives, he had some nice moments, kind of replacing some of the slam it up the gut runs that haven't been working with some quicker throws and using that as sort of a augmentation of the run game. But then it felt like as the game went on, probably because they were for a long time nursing a pretty big lead over Tampa Bay, who came back into this thing, it sort of felt as if they went back into their shell. And last year when the Eagles would go into the run heavy shell, they'd rip one for 30, 40, 50 yards at some point. That just hasn't happened yet, man. And I don't know how much of it is a Barkley issue and how much of it is, I mean, it's the same run game. Jeff Stoutland, the run game coordinator, offensive line coach, it's not as if they've changed schematically up front. They have had some injuries on the offensive line. Lane Johnson was also banged up again. I don't know how much to attribute it there. But, yeah, I think a lot of the headlines, I'm glad you said this, because a lot of the headlines are going to be about A.J. Brown and the cryptic tweets and, his lack of production outside of the second half of the Rams game. But I think the run game is maybe potentially the bigger issue. Barkley's surviving from a fantasy standpoint, but you just wonder how long that is going to go on. Let's go to the Bucs here. We saw a Chris Godwin return. We saw no Mike Evans in this one. And I think we got a lot of clues about the wide receiver usage. So Emeka Egbuka ran a route on 74.4% of the dropbacks, 10 targets, just 29% slot snaps. Chris Godwin, they said he was going to be limited. Not really. 72.1% route participation, 10 targets, just 26% slot snaps. That is interesting. Meanwhile, Sterling Shepard, 53.5% of the routes, 4 targets, but he was the main slot guy at 55%. So I think the Godwin stuff is going to be an ongoing thing. You said this morning on FFL. You weren't rushing out to play Chris Godwin, which I think is right. And his role in this offense not being that power slot receiver, we've seen him have his best seasons when he's been that guy. Maybe this is just a 1 week thing, but Emeka Egbuka and Chris Godwin as the outside receivers, both of those guys, but especially Godwin, I think, are more weaponized in the slot.
Yeah, and that's where I do have some, I wouldn't say concerns, but it's just how is this all going to shake out? Because to your point, Godwin plays well as that power slot role. Egbuka, while he has been able to perform both inside and out, his touchdown came from the slot, on a big gain. And we've also seen him actually perform well. I think he hit maybe a 20-yard gain on a crossing pattern as well. So it's Egbuka averaging 10.3 yards after the catch per reception in this game. That's how he got to 100 yards, because he catches those short to intermediate passes and he can do so well as a receiver after the catch. That's how we wind up giving him, we were talking earlier today, A+ right now from a receiving standpoint, in his rookie season. So I do have some, again, not concerns, but just I want to see how they're going to deploy each of these guys, because all of them play so well from the interior without having that big perimeter presence from Mike Evans. How is this really going to shake out for each of them moving forward? And it's not just them. I'll give credit to Baker Mayfield because, the dude's just a gamer with how many offensive line injuries they've continued to have. While he didn't really show up from an efficiency standpoint as a passer, him still being able to distribute the ball, whether it's been to Godwin or Egbuka or even Sterling Shepard, they were still able to at least make a solid comeback against this Eagles defense we've known to be something suffocating to other offenses. So that's really where I wouldn't say, again, concern is not the word, but it's just how are they going to continue to mold this offense to fit the pass catchers they have? Because all three of them really, they prefer to be on the inside, but how is that going to shake out moving forward? That's really my biggest question.
Yeah, I'm tracking that as well. And I do want to just say, they were down 24-6 at the end of the first half. I always try to, and I've been saying this a lot this year, I don't want to overreact to these small sample sizes and negative game scripts. So let's see what Chris Godwin's role looks like next week, because he did, as we showed, Jacob Gibbs pointed out that he had like the highest air yards that he's had in a minute. So that is definitely something to track. Just real quick, and then I'll throw it to the next game. Bucky Irving, what a beast. I know he had the pretty costly fumble here, but man, he was awesome in this game. A touchdown through the air, 165 yards from scrimmage, 20 touches. He's just so fun to watch. You just always think he's about to get tackled and then slips down and keeps getting extra yardage down the football field. So just an incredibly fun player. The Bucs are still very fun despite being one of the most injured teams that I can remember. And injuries, great transition to our final game that we really care about here. Giants 21, Chargers 18. Big time upset for the New York Giants in Jackson Dart's first start. But man, Chris, it came at a cost. Again, awesome win. But Giants wide receiver Malik Neighbors has an MRI on Monday morning to determine if he tore his right ACL. That was the report that's the fear right now. So if you're listening to this on Monday, you might have already gotten the news alert, but it appears that we should be bracing for a season-ending injury to one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL as New York is trying to get their rookie quarterback onboarded here.
Yeah, and to be honest, from a fantasy standpoint, I can't really point to another wide receiver that I would want to say, run out to the waiver wires and pick up Wandale. No. We're picking up Darius Slayton. We're doing the Theo Johnson thing. I'm not going to do that at this point, y'all. It really is just a bummer to see, like to your point, Matt, one of the better wide receivers, not just from a route running standpoint, but how easily he's been able to get open, make things easier for his quarterback over the past couple of seasons. And it's going to be tough for the Giants moving forward. Really, the only thing that I can take away from this is Jackson Dart, not bad, especially going up against the Chargers defense. I mean, 25% play action rate. I mean, was scrambling. He had more design runs. I mean, 7 design runs this week than all of Russell Wilson's combined in his previous 3 starts. So the fact that Brian Daboll was able to get his rookie quarterback going, not just as a passer, but utilizing his legs as well. I mean, that was the kind of the hope for Jackson Dart was that his athleticism would be able to be essentially the way that Daboll can continue to keep the Giants moving offensively. So as a, let's say, mid-range or like high-end quarterback 2, I would say that's how I look at Dart just because of the Konami code that he provides. Yeah. But without Malik Neighbors, other than that, I mean, I'm not too terribly interested. It's just Dart and Scatterboo for me moving forward.
Yeah. Man, it just really stinks. Like this should be a moment to get really excited about this offense coming off this win versus a 3-0 team. 10 rush attempts for Jackson Dart. Only 1 True Media is charted as a scramble. So they're really going to get him used as a design rusher to help move the football. I don't know how, we'll see. He's going to take a lot of punishment if they do that all season. But Speaking of punishment, 27 touches for Cam Scatterboo, the rookie running back. It is basically going to be those 2 guys, and without Neighbors, I really question the ceiling of this whole thing. But I do think both those guys definitely come out of here with the fantasy stock up. Obviously, seeing Cam Scatterboo trusted with 27 touches and Jackson Dart being used as a rusher, that's great. But like I said, this is a costly win. The Chargers lose this game. They also lost Joe Alt to a high ankle sprain, most likely early on in this one. And man, you felt it. According to NFL Pro, Justin Herbert completed just 5 of 19. That's 26.3%. Passes under pressure for 80 yards and a touchdown and 1 interception. That's the second lowest completion percentage under pressure of any game in his career. Again, -3 starting offensive linemen for most of the game. When he had a clean pocket, Herbert completed 81.8% of his passes, 123 yards. So obviously that is a big difference in this one, and it makes me wonder. This Chargers passing game has been good to us so far. Obviously, the Lad McConkey stuff aside, this Chargers passing game has been good to us in fantasy. Herbert has been a top 10 fantasy quarterback. QJ has been a revelation. Another 13 targets for him in this one with that great touchdown reception we talked about earlier. But I wonder if Alt misses significant time. This is 2 weeks in a row we've just seen Herbert under siege from a pretty decent front here.
Yeah, and that's where I'm wondering if Greg Roman tries to shift things back to the run-heavy ways that we saw over the past, like in 2024 especially, and that limits a lot of the pass game upside for QJ Keenan and, of course, Lad McConkey as well. Because now the 2 straight games with Justin Herbert facing pressure on over 40% of his dropbacks. His passing success rate has taken a toll as well over the past couple of weeks. And I mean, that the interception, I mean, not the best, I mean, look from him. So it's just been tough. And with Hampton taking over 100% of the running back carries in this game and performing well as a rusher, you can see how I would say that there is the potential, or why they would try and shift to putting a lot of the onus from an offensive standpoint onto Hampton and that running game versus trying to make things work with Herbert in the passing game. So that's my concern for Herbert and also his pass catchers, that they just try and shift things back from a volume standpoint to the rushing attack.
Yeah, and Hampton already looks like a pretty big winner, you know, a too early panic guy who's going to turn around and be a great pick. Like you mentioned, 94% of the running back touches, 10.7 yards after contact per rushing attempt in this game. He was due for a long run out of a big gap, and we saw that in this game for the touchdown. So that was great to see from him. He definitely is somebody that I think is going to go down as a win in like the third round of fantasy football draft. But we'll see what this Chargers offense looks like without some of these offensive linemen. That definitely has me concerned. All right, that is going to do it for the games we care most about. Now let's get into the games that we sort of care about, starting with Jaguars 26, 49ers 21. Man, Chris, I don't know how much you got to see of this game. This is like a frustrating one on both sides, particularly Jacksonville. This offense, I swear, it could be awesome if they could just iron out some of these frustrating moments. I'm not sure if they can, because they are, I mean, the pre-snap penalties and stuff like that, I think at some point, we're in week 4, we do have to clean that up, but at some point that is going to get ironed out. Some of the Trevor Lawrence ball placement, you know, Brian Thomas Jr., some of these things, we'll see if those get ironed out, but there's some really fun moments from this offense with like good role, like some of the role players popping up here for big moments as well. So I don't know. It's a weird win, but it is a win for Jacksonville in this one.
Yeah, and we talked earlier today about how much can we really expect out of the two primary wide receivers for Trevor Lawrence, and Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. Though Brian Thomas Jr., whether it's the wrist or whether it's the business decision concerns, I mean, still seeing him with 7 targets. And of course, he had like a 14-yard grab, I think, across the middle of the field that really looked solid. But then afterwards, just followed up by not a lot afterwards. And Travis Hunter, he has the 28-yard explosive play. And then after that, not a ton afterwards. So it's just like, to your point, there's these flashes from pretty much everybody there. I mean, Travis Etienne has that 48-yard touchdown run down the left sideline. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, where's the other stuff that's going to happen there? Where are the other parts and pieces of this offense that we keep wanting to see out of Liam Cohen's like run offense? So that's kind of my takeaway, is that there's parts and pieces of it here, but from a fantasy standpoint, can we continue to rely on these guys week in and week out? And I just don't see it yet. I mean, we probably have to start Brian Thomas Jr., given where we drafted him at. Yeah. Probably have to start Travis Etienne, especially from how well he's been producing. But everybody else, are they must plays on a week-to-week basis? I don't think so at this point.
Parker Washington led this team in routes run, and he had 0 yards on 2 targets.
Points per cardio lead. Let's do this.
He also did have a kick or a punt return for a touchdown. So I mean, he's definitely a useful player, and he's had some moments as a wide receiver. But I mean, some of the best players right now, at least on a per touch basis, have been the tight ends. You know, Hunter Long getting involved, Brenton Strange getting involved. Because for the receivers, it's a little hit and miss. Brian Thomas Jr., I do think they made sort of a concerted effort to get him on more outbreakers, that's where you're going to get the best stuff from him, not going over the middle as long as he's dealing with this wrist injury or whatever he's going through. I was glad to see the long Travis Hunter reception, but obviously it was just the one. So I'm with you that the one thing that I do think we need to adjust sort of our expectations to now, 4 weeks into the season, I think a lot of the thought about this Jaguars offense was, they're going to be throwing the football because they have a bad defense. Their defense is pretty badass. They play fast. They play aggressive. The linebackers are all over the place. That is something that, as long as the defense is playing like that, they can lean on a well-designed run game with a good offensive line maybe not talent-wise, but a good offensive line performance. So that's something that's I don't think is changing. On the other side of it, San Francisco, I don't know, Chris. Brock Purdy just didn't look right to me. Consistently struggling to push off that injured foot, and basically every 49ers pass catcher just took turns getting smoked in this game because Purdy was kind of missing high. On that note, Jawan Jennings left the game at one point, did return. Ricky Pearsall was kind of in and out of this game. Everybody except Christian McCaffrey is constantly getting hurt for the San Francisco 49ers. How about that?
Yeah. Is that how it works? So in order for one player to stay healthy, the other players have to get hurt? Is that some sort of like balancing equation that we just didn't know about until now? Because that's the thing that's so frustrating about this. We were so concerned about Christian McCaffrey because he had that calf scare coming into the season. That's just, all right, well, we're just going to have so many worries about how Christian McCaffrey is going to operate during the season. But now it's been everybody else because George Kittle's already on freaking IR. And now, to your point, Ricky Pearsall in and out on the exercise bike, if I'm remembering correctly, like at some point throughout this game. And then also Jawan Jennings getting crunched and also having to get. The two were just almost switching places in terms of who is on the bench and who is in the tent. And while, yes, from the stat sheet standpoint, and box score scouts will look at 309 passing yards for Brock Purdy, 2 touchdowns, and of course a couple of picks. They'll say, all right, well, that's kind of what I signed up for, right? A good fantasy outing, especially against a relatively tough defense. But man, some of the underlying stuff and seeing how, I would say, tough or a struggle it seemed like for this 49ers passing game outside of Christian McCaffrey, I have some worries about what the long-term outlook is going to be for San Francisco, at least from a fantasy standpoint.
I think that's right. I mean, when are we going to see this unit at full strength, and are we ever going to see it? I have no idea. Yeah. So it's just been a bizarre year for San Francisco in that regard. All right, the other game that wrapped up late in the afternoon window, Bears 25, Raiders 24, in what turned out to be a pretty wild one for Chicago, man. That's a win that I think Ben Johnson can kind of hang his hat on here, because this looked like, oh my God, our defense is giving up, the Ashton Jeanty game. They're getting some picks off Gino, who we'll talk about in a second, but are we really not going to be able to capitalize on some of those turnovers? Well, despite some injuries on the offensive line and a performance from Max Crosby on the Raiders defense where he just looked like he was determined to win that game on his own, the Bears fought through it. Obviously they blocked the kick in the end that could have been the game winner, but the Bears fought through it. Caleb was 8 for 10 against the blitz in this game. I thought that was an impressive note. And despite the fact, again, they had injuries at both the tackle spots, and Cole Kmet just mistake after mistake in this game. They fought through, and some of the guys really came through for fantasy.
Yeah, and I think the players that you were typically starting, whether it was Caleb in your 2 QB leagues, DeAndre Swift because of the volume, even Roma, especially Roma Dunze, and even DJ Moore to a lesser degree, I think most of those guys met expectation, right? I mean, 212 passing yards and the touchdown. And of course, seeing Caleb Williams still out there as a rusher, I mean, 13 yards to kind of cover up for the interception from a point standpoint. So you got what you expected out of him. Got the touchdown for Roma Dunze, so you expect that. Few catches here and there for DJ Moore. So all of that kind of worked out. I would say, though, going up against this defense, outside of the Max Crosby of it all, to your point, I think we expected a bit more. After seeing how well they played against the Cowboys just this last week, considering this, hopefully seeing some of that momentum continue on into week 4, that was the hope. But still, we, at least from an opportunity standpoint, know where the ball is going to go. And to your point, also seeing how well Caleb Williams continues to operate against the blitz and pressure. Yes, a couple of fumbles, but still not the disastrous outlook that we saw from Williams in 2024. I think that's one of the key things I'm taking away from this game, is that in some of those same situations that we would find Caleb in 2024, we'd almost expect him to almost completely buckle and have multiple interceptions or take a number of sacks that would completely take his team out of the game. And so having him kind of operate more under Ben Johnson and being able to work with multiple receivers, also continue to move the ball down the field, and that's where I'm more impressed or more confident in Caleb Williams after this performance.
Yeah, 4 or 5 on the final drive. Again, you mentioned some of the scrambling, and yeah, shout out to Roma Dunze. Touchdown in every game, 5 touchdowns on the season. What a time to be alive. What a time for the Roma Dunze bros, myself included. What a baller. Okay. Raiders, though. We talked about the Ashton Jeanty game. That was awesome, but a couple concerns coming out of this game. One, Colton Miller, left tackle, looked to suffer a pretty serious injury in the final minute of the game on a day when the offensive line had its best performance of the season by a lot. That's disturbing. Perhaps even more disturbing, this is Geno Smith's second 3-interception game of the season, and we're in week number 4, Chris Allen. Week 4! I I don't know. I still just am very kind of off put about the Raiders offense. Where are you at with the whole thing?
I'm with you there as well, because it's not like going up against the Bears. It's not Brian Flores having all these disguised coverages and operating some sort of complete scheme that's going to freak out any quarterback. His interceptions were on some fairly basic concepts, at least from, again, we say this as nerds, okay, and people just watching the game, but still a lot of
on
people
the broadcast
that are
angle,
on the broadcast, that we can see how some of those things, and I'm questioning what he's seeing on the field to this point, because seeing those multiple interceptions again, and while yes, it was great to see Ashton Jeanty get into the end zone as a receiver, where was the production to pretty much any other pass catcher? I mean, a lot of folks were looking to Trey Tucker to continue his production after his outburst in week 3. I mean, just 2 targets, not really there. And he's the guy that typically, and also the same thing for Jacoby Myers, 7 targets, the guy that plays on the slot, the guy that should be getting a lot of those layup looks, 4 for 30. I mean, it's just not there from a passing standpoint outside of Jeanty. So yes, that has probably been one of my bigger concerns out of this performance, because against the Bears, we thought there was going to be so much more production, but yet again, it was really just Jeanty and nobody else.
Yep, all those deep throws that people love are super fun until they're going to the other team. Yeah, not so great there for Geno Smith. So pretty concerned about just the Raiders passing game, and that was a game they absolutely should have won. Next, let's go back to the 1 p.m. window here. Next game up, Falcons 34, Commanders 27. Much, much better game for Michael Penix in this one. And I really felt like you saw some concerted changes in this one. I think you saw more over the middle work for Drake London, which was something that I was harping on this past week. He had his biggest game of the season, 110 yards and a touchdown, some sick catches for him in this one. Obviously, it was a good matchup, so that's the asterisk for all of this. But according to NFL Pro, Michael Penix was perfect on short passes, completing all 13 of his attempts for 0 to 9 air yards, career high 180 yards, both of his touchdowns. He also showed some improvement pushing the ball down the field, 5 of 8 on throws of over 15 air yards for 125 yards and that 1 interception, compared to 1 of 19 through weeks 1 through 3. 1 of 19. So the downfield passing game was more effective. I think the short passing game was more effective because they kind of concentrated on some more over the middle stuff. It certainly was not perfect for Michael Penix, and this is a good matchup, as I mentioned. Nevertheless, everyone basically got home except for Darnell Mooney, who picked up another injury in this one. Everyone got home for the Falcons from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, and I think that's my the only worry for the Falcons passing game is what that wide receiver 2 slot is going to look like, because a lot of that was hinging on Mooney's capability of stretching the defense. And while I think Kyle Pitts wound up replacing some of that, and finally seeing him get into the end zone was something great, but the hope is that they can rely more on a lot of those in-breaking routes and crossing routes that we saw from Drake London in this game. I mean, to your point, I mean, the amount of time, the level of connection that we saw from them just wasn't something that we saw in week 3, which is something of a surprise. And so while seeing not just Drake London, but Michael Penix passing success rate back up over 60%, pass completion percentage or adjusted completion percentage back over 70%, all of those things are marks that you would want to see out of your quarterback. And even though it was against the Commanders defense, which we know can be somewhat susceptible, again, having the ability to operate behind the offensive line and work with your number 1 wide receiver, it has to be a good thing for folks that are rostering Drake London.
We talked a lot this week about the lack of Drake London work from the slot. He ran 12 routes from the slot, over 40% of his snaps on the inside. He was targeted 6 times, 5 for 81, and a touchdown from the slot in this game. So that is exactly what we needed to see from him. We needed him to see some more of that slot stuff. We got that. So again, I think just This is a change in the coaching staff, right? They fired the wide receiver coach. Zach Robinson came down from the booth. By the way, Zach Robinson kind of rumored to potentially be the offense coordinator. Zach Robinson rumored to potentially be a candidate for the Oklahoma State head coaching job because Mike Gundy's out and Zach Robinson used to be a quarterback there. So that could be kind of something on the. It seems like there's been some weird vibes with Zach and like maybe Falcons fans and stuff like that. So I don't know. That could just be something to keep on the radar. Maybe he wants to fly the coop and go to college and kind of run something down there. We'll see. But good to see Drake London get involved from the slot here. And obviously, Bijan Robinson is just one of the best players in the league.
Yeah.
Full
Yeah.
stop. One of the best players in football. On the Commanders side of things, run game was effective in this one, but the backfield was split three ways once again. Chris Rodriguez had a couple nice runs, so really nothing to say about that. Sorry, Bill Bros, but Chris Rodriguez actually looks pretty good out there. We also got another strong outing from Deebo Samuel, who I had not noticed this, Chris, but he played in the slot on 45% of his snaps today, and over the course of the season, he actually has played in the slot on 70% of his snaps. That is easily a career high. So Deebo's been very productive, more productive than I thought, and I think they're even using him in different ways as a true slot receiver, which is good for a guy like him who took a big step back against man coverage last year.
Yeah, and the hope would be that playing with Marcus Mariota, who didn't know Terry McLaurin in this game, that they would find easy ways to get the ball out of Mariota's hand into essentially their best playmaker. And the only really other fantasy takeaway from this, and if you're sitting in a dynasty league, it was good to see Luke McCaffrey getting involved in here, like 3 targets, and of course he found the end zone. So I thought that was it was good to see that even without Terry McLaurin on the field, Cliff Kingsbury was trying to find other ways to get some of the other pass catchers involved outside of Zach Ertz. So, Jalen Lane also getting involved, Tay Martin getting involved. Those are the guys that are probably sitting on the back end of a lot of rosters, but there is some potential for them to be used down the line if things continue the way that they are. So, not the largest, it's the best game to take away any fantasy analysis from because it's Mariota starting. But for the most part, seeing those guys getting involved was pretty good to see.
Let's go all the way back to this morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, over there in Ireland. Steelers 24, Vikings 21. Oh, my God, what a journey this game was. Let's start on the Steelers side of things. Kenny Gainwell steps in for Jaylen Warren and ends up being one of the best players in fantasy on the slate. He touched the ball 25 times and scored 2 touchdowns. And DK Metcalf finally housed a quick inbreaker off play action, which is that's what I expected him to do this season. If he was going to succeed, it was going to be in that way. It took playing against the Vikings, secondary, one of the hardest secondaries to play against. That's where he finally gets home. So that's just fantasy. That's fantasy football type of outcome for you here. Kenny Gainwell breaks the slate, and DK Metcalf finally comes through with his biggest game in what was on paper his most difficult matchup.
My only takeaway from this is that we need to fire Zach Taylor. The Cincinnati needs to fire, because if the Steelers could do this against the same defense, what were we doing last week? This is ridiculous. How quickly Aaron Rodgers was getting the ball out of his hands. We watched a couple of sequences where it was just drop back, flick it to DK Metcalf, who's running out of the slot, 8, 9, 10-yard gain. Where was this, at least from an offensive standpoint, the week beforehand?
I think Aaron Rodgers might have a deeper catalog of IDing things than Jake Browning does at this. Perhaps
I'm not ready to take that yet. I'm not ready to take those excuses yet. I'm still upset about last week. But anyway,
totally fair. Well, don't worry. You get to watch your boys play against another great defense tomorrow. So buckle in.
It's going to be tough again. But the larger, I wouldn't say concern right now is on the flip side of that, and how little Jordan Mason was being used. Because it was Xavier Scott being the guy that winds up getting the touchdown, and of course once they wound up getting into the end zone, it was Jalen Naylor also catching a touchdown as well. So I'd say, from a running back usage standpoint, Mason probably grades out as the one that you want to start. But after seeing how many other, at least not just pass catchers, but also from a rushing standpoint, how little he was used in some of the areas that matter the most, I would say, I don't know, DEFCON 4, somewhere in there in terms of level of worry for Mason moving forward.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the game script, right? If they're going to fall behind, he's definitely a game script sensitive back. He has 70% of the running back touches. Xavier Scott picked up the rest of them, and he definitely does not own just all of the work. That's something we learned in this game, and that makes him not like a running back 1 play every single week, but more of a running back 2 that if they do fall behind, which obviously happened here, thanks to a lot of different factors that we'll talk about. But that's something that we do have to worry about now. So kind of playing the matchups there. Luckily, they play the Browns over there in Europe again next week. I don't think you have to worry about Jordan Mason and game script in that one, but we shall see. Carson Wentz is still Carson Wentz, by the way. No sense of how to manage a pocket, and has, like a freaking catapult release. He just got to crank that thing to let it go. The final drive was, and we were on FFL. I was trying to be professional. as we're like live on air this morning, and he's just cranking that trebuchet back again and again. He's just, oh my God, it's like painful to watch, bro. So, I don't know. I kind of heard people say this week that, oh man, and even at the beginning of this game, when he actually did kind of start the game well in the opening script, he was ripping some in-breakers off play action. Might they stick with Carson Wentz because he gives them a better shot? This is a team with veterans that could win the Super Bowl. He might give them a better shot. You're not winning the damn Super Bowl with Carson Wentz. Let me break that to you right now, okay? That's not happening. So whether or not JJ McCarthy you're gonna win the Super Bowl with him, you're not winning it with Carson Wentz. So you might as well just go back to your first round pick, because it's not as if like, oh, Carson Wentz gives us credibility. I think we can do away with that narrative after this game.
100%. You have to see like how quickly you can develop JJ McCarthy into somebody that can operate the offense as intended. And I'd say, what did we really expect from Carson Wentz at this point? I mean, how many teams has been on the stat?
Yeah.
I think from Bill Barnwell, 6 different starts on 6 different teams in 6 years. So it's just, we should see these types of performance out of him. And so if, again, box score scouts will look at it, 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a couple of picks. Oh, that's great. That's exactly what I signed up for. It will get worse at some point once they come up against a tougher defense. But on the flip side, I guess, of who was from him throwing the ball to who was catching it, good to see Jordan Addison back out there. 8 targets. But I would say the one thing that did kind of concern me, and maybe it's just because it's his first game back, it looks like he should maybe get back to that cardio a bit on that long catch and run he had down the right sideline. I feel like 2024 Jordan Addison would house that.
In fairness, he kind of had to wait for a lollipop to
That's
fall down.
true. Yeah, that is true.
He had to do a full Tyreek Tua type situation on that deep pass. So if I'm giving Addison some credit, maybe it would be that. But yeah, I think if people want Wentz to continue to start, just admit that you just want it from a fantasy football perspective, which, that's fine. I could stand to hear that. That's fine. But don't pretend like it's some big brain NFL take, because both these receivers did go for over 100 yards against the Steelers defense that I continue to not be very impressed with. So there is that. Mm-hmm. All right. That does it for the games we sort of care about. Now let's finish it up with the games that could have been an email. We have 4 very, very email games to rapid fire quick takes on here, starting with Bills 31, Saints 19. I love the Saints scam, Chris, so I almost threw them in the games we sort of care about, but then I could not be serious. This is an email game. My takeaways here real quick. James Cook, Josh Allen continue to roll for the Bills, and Kendra Miller actually had some legit moments for the Saints. So if you're one of the conspiracy theorists that think Alvin Kamara is on the trade block, this is the type of game that is evidence in your corner.
Yeah, that's the one thing that stuck out to me on the Saints side. I mean, 9 carries to 5 for Kendre before things really got out of hand. So much more of a split. And of course, it was Kendre that wound up getting into the box, like on the goal line carry. So while it's like Alvin Kamara, I mean, 5 targets, that's okay for Alvin Kamara, but that's not what we drafted him for in around like the 5th, 6th round. We expected a higher target share for a veteran that's been at least so solid and efficient as a receiver as Kamara has been like over his years there down in New Orleans. So general concern for him and what his fantasy output could be moving forward. And yeah, I'm with you. Like Chris Olave, yeah, I know he didn't get his first target until the second quarter. First reception didn't come until the second half, but he's getting a lot of those layup looks, and for as often as Spencer Rattler was under siege in this game, I mean, he got walloped on a blitz pickup in the second quarter. So I would say just better days ahead for Chris Olave, just given how often he's being used and where he's being used out on the field.
Yeah, we can just throw the Chris Olave double reverse interception target to Tyler Shuck play. To Spencer Rattler play. We could throw that in the garbage. Kellen Moore. There was a few galaxy brain Kellen Moore plays in this one. We did not need to do that, especially a game that was kind of competitive. A game that was not competitive. Texans 26, Titans 0. I'll sum this up on the Titans side here real quick, Chris, before I throw to you with some Texans takeaways. Cam Ward on the Titans 26-0 loss to the Texans. Quote, "If we keep it a buck, we ass." And
oh man,
yeah, you know
I
what?
mean, we keeping a buck right now. We ass. So we own for it.
I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that when we're live, but that is what Cam Ward said, and it's true. I really thought this team actually could be functional. So, Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley could be in volume plays. Nobody is going to be any sort of anything in this offense right now. It is a real big mess. I was very wrong about this being a somewhat decent situation. It's been terrible so far.
Well, when we pitched, we were all kind of thinking about the Titans offense over the offseason. It was like, all right, well, Calvin Ridley's going to be their veteran presence. Oh, they bring in Tyler Lockett. Okay, so another veteran presence. All right, this Alec Ayumaner guy. Okay, he could be a decent wide receiver prospect. And now after 4 weeks, it's like the tuxedos seem kind of messed up. Thinking about this now and how this whole offense has been operating, it's the third game that Cam Ward has been pressured on over 40% of his dropbacks. And Calvin Ridley, down to, from a route share standpoint, target share standpoint, really not getting it done there. So I'm not, I guess, even there. Actually, another thing to worry about coming out of this game, beat reports were talking about Calvin Ridley getting some attention from the trainers for a knee injury. So potential concern for week 5. Yeah, exactly. So, because that's why I was looking at there has to be something behind Ridley just getting 3 targets in these games. So that's something to pay attention to. But even projecting forward, what can we really think about this whole offense? I almost want to say if you do want to get some feelers out to maybe do a buy low on Tajay Spears, because Tony Pollard, while he's been at least useful as a running back so far, that's really just based off of opportunity. And if this team wants to try and shake things up and maybe get a few more explosives, Tony Pollard isn't the guy to do it right now. Just one explosive play through 4 weeks. So if Spears is available out there, I do wonder if once he gets back there, out there on the field, he's the one that they try and look to create a bit more, not just as a rusher, but also as a receiver, because we have seen him do that in the past.
And then on the Texans side of things, the big story is Woody Marks takes the lead in the backfield, 58.3% of the snaps, 21 touches to 15 for Nick Chubb. And he also scored the Texans' first red zone touchdown of the season. That's right, week 4, and the Texans just scored their first red zone touchdown. So he is definitely someone I'm sure we'll be talking about tomorrow on the Waiver Wire Show. That's the big story for the Texans offense. Next game up here, Lions 34, Browns 10. I didn't see too much of this game, but all I know is I did see the Lions continue to do Lions things, and I saw Dylan Gabriel enter this game at one point for Joe Flacco. So I kind of wonder, Chris, if we're nearing the end of the line for the Flacco run.
Well, yeah, because over the offseason, we thought it was going to be cool having Joe Flacco there because he was chucking it downfield, whether it was his last time with Cleveland or when he was in Indianapolis last year. We were thinking air yards. We were thinking converting some of those into receiving yards for Jerry Jeudy, for Cedric Tillman, and we're just not seeing that. Under 200 yards passing in 3 state games for Joe Flacco, negative EPA per dropback in pretty much every start so far, and at least 2 turnovers in 3 straight games. What are we doing here? If this, especially with as well as his defense has been playing right now, if they want to try and make any sort of push in the AFC North, I think a shift at quarterback would make some sense. And the only other takeaway I got from the Browns is, this is the Quinshon Judkins show at this point. 21 of 23 running back carries. He's really displaced Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford. After missing week 1. So if you've got him, you have to be happy with what you got.
Last game up here, Patriots 42, Panthers 13. This was a despicable performance by the Panthers, who just need to do. I hate to be the guy that's just, I'm going to talk about the problems and not offer any solutions, but Panthers just got to do anything else on defense. I don't know why they just got to do anything else. I think we can best sum this game up, Chris, in that we saw both Andy Dalton and Joshua Dobbs, the backup quarterbacks for both teams in this game. So really the only thing I had that was useful to note was that Stephon Diggs looked the best he has all season, and he's looked pretty rough this year, in my opinion, from an isolation standpoint, and had the highest route participation, 81.8% on the season. So pretty disgusting. Just a disgusting football game for the Panthers in this one.
Oh, yeah. Drake May, I'll give you a guess. How many dropbacks was Drake May pressured on in this game?
Like 3.
That's exactly it. 3 dropbacks he was pressured on. That's insane, man.
Felt like it.
Yeah, and it was good to see May get into the end zone. I like his ode to Cam Newton. He did the Superman Selly after he got in as a rusher.
Yeah.
But still, the only other thing that's really to note, still a mess at the backfield. A complete split between Ramondre Stevenson, Travion Henderson, and of course Antonio Gibson also getting a goal line carry. So I think Diggs was the only real highlight, because if you started Henderson, cool seeing him get into the end zone and also seeing him get like a little bit as a receiver. But outside of that, there's really no takeover for Hendo or anything along those lines. So it's just more confusion and uncertainty moving forward. And then for the Panthers overall, it's just really just Teterow and McMillan and nobody else for me, because even Chuba Hubbard, yes, he did have a ton of volume, but seeing Miles Sanders continue to mix in and or Rico Dowdle and I'm off of the Panthers offense outside of the wide receiver.
Yeah. Pretty brutal stuff down there in Charlotte.
Yeah.
All right. That is going to do it for us today. That is a wrap on Sunday of week 4. Thank you to Chris Allen for joining us once again. Absolutely electric to talk with you, buddy. Tomorrow we will be back. Justin Boone joins me for the People's Panic Meter on Monday, and I'm sure there's tons of panic in the fantasy streets after week 4. Try to say things other than Lad McConkey. We'll definitely be talking Lad McConkey, so try to be original when you send in your submissions. Remember, you can always tweet at me or Boone. I send out the tweet right after every Sunday Night Football game, so you can find that there. But if you want to make sure you get to the front of the line, email us, fantasymailbag@yahoosports.com. Voice memos and videos are encouraged. That is going to lock you into the show, even if you send in the same name as everybody else. You send in the voice or video memo, you are locked into the show. But you can always just write your feelings out as well. So be sure to get your submissions in by 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday as we go live at 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Until then, we are out.